Hey guys, Coach Rain, Canyonside Cages podcast. On today's episode, we've got Monte Lee. He's the head coach at Clemson University. Had an outstanding first two seasons, 40 plus wins. Last year, his boys hit 73 home runs, put them in the top 25 in the nation. I'm looking to find out, the daily routines of hitters like Seth Beer, Logan Davison, kind of what these guys are talking about every day, work on their swing path, work on their intent. I'm really interested to see the inner workings of what goes on at Clemson baseball. So look forward to you guys hearing the conversation between Coach and I. Thanks for watching.
Davidson, our shortstop, Chris Williams, our catcher, and Seth, those three guys, hitting somewhere between that 1 and 4 spot, depending on what order, we decide to hit them and how we decide to configure those guys in the lineup to their advantage. I think we got a chance to be pretty good offensively and defensively. Pitching-wise, we just got to figure out who's going to be our starters. We've got some guys that have the ability. They just haven't done it, at this level yet. We've got more of a veteran bullpen. It's a little bit of an unknown. I've never had a year where I've lost all 4 starting pitchers. All 4 of them were drafted. So, we just got hit pretty good by the draft. But, I like our club. It's a good group of kids. They work hard. I'm excited. We start back next Wednesday is when our guys come back to class. So it'll be interesting to see if kind of the plan we put in place for those guys when they left for Christmas break, if they followed it and they did all the work, that we kind of gave them as far as their individual player plans, then they should be in good shape, ready to go.
Well, outstanding, man. That'd be my first question. As far as your players go, are they coming into your system with the knowledge of what you guys are kind of, going to give them as hitting coaches? For instance, a Seth Davidson or Logan Davidson, where the guy has a lot of power already. Are you guys implementing things that he wasn't used to? And is he kind of a product of coming to the program and learning a few things to gain power, to gain launch angle, to gain intent, like you guys talk about?
Well, I think I think what we try to do first and foremost, and what I've tried to do throughout the course of my career, I started out as a hitting coach, as an assistant. I was a hitting coach for 8 years as an assistant coach before I became a head coach. So I think one of the things that I've always tried to start with is look at the strength of the player, and always start with his strength and understand that you have to give the player the freedom to be an individual. That you can't cookie cut hitters. You can't take all hitters and put them in the same category in terms of mechanics and approach. And hitting to me is really those two things. It's mechanics and it's approach. They're two separate entities. And what we try to do is try to look at the hitter's strength first. I think that, most hitters that play, at this level, they're here for a reason. So trying to go in and make them all hit with the same approach or with the same mechanics, the same drill segment, probably doesn't necessarily work. What we try to do is look at their strength, address their strength, and then look at their weaknesses and try to understand what can we do to make this hitter even better. With a guy like a Logan Davidson, for instance, he had a really good base. His father played in the big leagues for 6 years. So he got a really good base. So what we try to do with Logan is really just point out ways, within his swing mechanics and within his approach to just make him better, even better. But I think part of it too is individualizing the plan for the player, approach-wise and mechanics-wise. But also you got to get them to buy in. I think that, to me, yes, there are absolutes in hitting, but I think it's more about making general observations of some of the best in the game. Look at this hitter, look at what this guy does. I think you can do the same thing. Let's try it and see if it works for you. I think is a big thing that we do. The more of the absolutes on our end is you got to swing the bat with intent all the time. I don't think you're, when it comes to throwing the baseball harder, driving the baseball, running faster, moving more weight in the weight room, all of those things, it all correlates to doing them with intent, with aggressive intent. You got to train to throw hard. If you want to get stronger, you got to move heavy weight with intent. If you want to become faster, you've got to sprint with intent. In the same way with hitting. If you want to increase your bat speed, if you want to increase your power, you got to swing the bat with intent. And you've got to do some things that are a little bit different when it comes to weighted bat programs, resistance speed training, weighted ball programs. All of those, they're all similar to me. Again, it's about trying to make the player more explosive and more powerful within his movement patterns to make him a better player.
Oh, that's a great answer, man. I loved your tweet recently, about we swing to do damage. And it was one of your players just hitting an absolute bomb. And just something that I love to hear coaches at this level give their guys to have that, give their guys a chance to have that freedom in their swing.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you work? Obviously you have a bunch of different personalities on the team. How do you work with intent with different personalities and different swings? Say a guy like Seth, who just is absolutely going to hit shots at a good launch angle, but you got a guy that's a little shorter and that's not doing as much. Do you guys have different intent, ways to talk about that with each of your guys?
We do. Yeah, we do. And, I think it all starts, the first word that we always try to bring into the program is freedom. And freedom, when you feel freedom as a player, then you're not afraid to make mistakes. I think that those two things correlate. If you want your players to be at their best, they can't be afraid to fail. So freedom is a word that we always start off at the beginning of the fall, trying to get our guys to understand that we want you to swing the bat with intent to do damage, but understand that means you're going to swing and miss some. And swinging and missing is okay as long as you're doing it with the intent to do damage. If you're taking your best swing, you're going to swing and miss. The best hitters in the game swing and miss. The best players in the game make errors. They throw the ball in the dugout. They throw the ball away. They all do. The bottom line is they're always trying to play the game with intent. We talk about, every phase of the game you're on offense, with an offensive intent. You pitch with an offensive intent. You play defense with an offensive intent. You swing the bat with an offensive intent. We don't do anything with a defensive mindset. I think that's where it starts, and then from there, you try to look at the player, and you got a guy with power, a guy that has a chance to hit the ball out of the ballpark versus a guy that's more of a line drive, gap-to-gap style hitter. I think that intent just turns into field play. For Seth Beer, we want you to try to drive the ball off the batter's eye. Chris Williams, Logan Davidson, Grayson Bird starting to develop more and more power. Justin Hawkins, the kid who was in our video, that hit the ball over the scoreboard with that swing. He hit that ball about 480 feet. We want those guys working off the batter's eye. So, for us, that external cue for me of just, trying to do damage to the big part of the field, I think checks a lot of boxes for the hitter when it comes to incorporating their body to understand what we're trying to do. If we want the body to organize itself to do damage, just try to get the hitter to drive the ball off the batter's eye. He's probably going to swing with intent. He's probably going to use his lower half and swing at good pitches as well. It'll help him with his approach as well. For a guy that's not quite as powerful, that we don't want him to have quite the same launch angle, so to speak, we're going to get that guy to work off the top bar of the L screen. So, for that player, more of a gap-to-gap, line drive-oriented guy, hey, I want you to just try to drive the ball off the top bar of the L screen. And then once he starts to develop more power and a better feel, swinging the bat with freedom and just trying to work through the big part of the field, then, at that point, we may start getting into the mindset of hitting the ball, out of the ballpark more. But it's always, to me, it all starts with freedom, and it starts with trying to drive the ball with intent to the big part of the field. You just change their line of sight a little bit based on the level of power that they have.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's so much confusion out there with especially the young kids these days. They see all this stuff about hitting the ball in the air, and it can be translated into so many different ways. And I think it's huge to know yourself and to have an identity so you can kind of work around what you do well and not just try to do what you see everyone doing and you do what's cool. And, so that's a big, that's huge for some of my young guys to hear, because hitting the ball in the air can be so interpreted in so many different ways.
Well, there's no doubt. And I think that's the biggest problem is, when you start talking about hitting the ball in the air, I think a lot of coaches, they think you're trying to get guys to hit F8s and F7s and F9s, and that's better than, a low line drive, through the infield. You get that a lot where, you want guys hitting fly balls during BP as opposed to line drives. Well, no. The way we look at it is this: as the game is changing and evolving, the biggest thing that opened my eyes to a ball that's hit in the air hard, which is an extra base hit, a line drive, a ball hit out of the ballpark, a ball that's hit hard. We don't want to hit the ball into the infield, into the defense. In today's game, we shift. Our shortstop's not playing, the straight up position, so to speak, anymore. He's playing, at the 45-foot line between third base and second base a lot. Our second baseman's playing up the middle a lot with a right-handed hitter up there, because we all know that 70+% of the balls hit on the ground or hit to the pull side of the field. So if you're a guy that doesn't impact a baseball and you're hitting the ball on the ground, you're going to hit into a lot of outs, because you're going to have an infielder standing there, whereas maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and even in college baseball still to this day, where teams that don't shift a lot, those are 6-hole and 4-hole base hits. You're not going to get a lot of 4-hole and 6-hole base hits against Clemson, because we're going to have an infielder sitting there more times than not. So you better drive the ball to the big part of the field and try to do damage in the air. And to me, driving the ball in the air just means we're trying to hit the ball hard into the outfield. Whether that's a line drive for a smaller player, a guy that doesn't have a lot of power, he may hit the ball, more on a 5 to 10 degree launch angle, more of just a good line drive into the outfield gap to gap, or a guy with power, he may hit the ball more at a 15 to 20, 25 degree launch angle, because if he hits it, with a good exit velocity at that launch angle, it's going to leave the ballpark. So again, we kind of tailor make our approach to the hitter's strengths, but the one constant is we want to hit the ball hard in the air to the big part of the field. And if you do that consistently, you're going to get on base. If you hit the ball on the ground, you're not going to get on base. Seth Beer, perfect example. Seth, was 12 for 18 on balls that he hit in the air this fall. He was 0 for 16 on ground balls. We had a freshman this year who in 50 at-bats struck out 3 times. Okay? So you would think that guy hit for a high average. Well, he hit about 150 for the fall because he hit so many ground balls to the pull side of the field. He just kept hitting in the outs. And the more we've worked with him to develop him into staying through the big part of the field and getting the ball up in the air more, now you're going to start to see that kid progress once he understands that getting on top of the ball and hitting a hard ground ball, it's just not going to work at this level. You're not going to get hits if you do that. So I think that's been the biggest adjustment for us, and the eye-opener is just chart how many ground balls are hit and see how many hits you get. You just don't get that many hits in college baseball in this day and age if you play any sort of shift whatsoever.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear, because you think about how many teams work just situations, and every single drill is a hit the ball to the other, the other side of the field, hit a ground ball to the right side drill, and they're constantly working on the situation aspect as opposed to putting a premium on how to score runs at a higher level than just one run at a time. You know what I mean? So that's awesome to hear. Well, I just wanted to transition into a little bit of talking about mechanics, because you said there's some absolutes that, that some of your hitters, you talk about some things with certain hitters, you look at major league swings, and we've talked about some things on Twitter like depth. We've talked about turning the barrel, deep in the zone. Give me a couple things that have really opened your eyes to teaching the swing recently, and some things that you're really into showing some of your players?
Yeah, I think that probably the big change for me came when I came to the College of Charleston in the fall of 2008. After being at USC at South Carolina for 6 years as an assistant there, I had an assistant there with me at the College of Charleston who really taught to snap. We called it snapping the barrel deep. Turning the barrel deep and really just kind of snapping the heads, what we called it. Just a different terminology, but he was really big on it. And the more I listened to him and watched our guys trying to get the head of the bat to turn earlier and deeper, they were getting on the plane of the pitch earlier and had a better chance to square the ball up. So it started to open my eyes to watching guys who would cross what we call crossing their backside with their hands before they turn the barrel, which is a later barrel turn. Those guys typically have to hit the ball out in front to square it up, and they wind up hitting a lot of ground balls to the full side. What we started to look at was, anytime we pull the baseball, we want to hit the ball in the air. If you're pulling the ball on the ground more times than not, you're turning the barrel too late, out in front more, which means you're pulling or pushing the bat towards the baseball. If you push the hands forward past your backside before the barrel turns, you're going to wind up having to catch the ball out in front, and you're going to wind up hitting more balls on the ground. Whereas guys that turn the barrel deep and their hips lead their hands to the baseball, they get on plane deep and they stay through the ball, those guys wind up being able to drive the ball to all parts of the field better because they're on the plane of the pitch deeper and earlier. Hitting is timing. We all know that. And if you're off time just a little bit, if you're a little bit late, if you get the barrel turning deep, you still have a chance to square the ball up and hit it hard. It's how you take a fastball middle in and drive it up the middle or to the opposite field gap. You may be a little bit late, but if you get the barrel turning deep, you got a chance to get on plane to that pitch and still hit it hard. Whereas if you turn the barrel late, if you push the hand forward and the barrel turns later, you're not going to hit that pitch. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is just getting plate coverage with the barrel early. And if you do that, as you stride forward, if you can put hitters in a good position where they're loaded into their scap and their back hip is hinged as they fall forward, and they can maintain that position, they have a chance to turn the barrel deep, get on plane of the pitch early, and hit the ball hard into all fields. And who doesn't want hitters that get on plane early and stay through the strike zone for a long time with their barrel? If you do that, you got a chance to hit all three pitches, fastball, breaking ball, and changeup, and do damage with them. And that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah, it definitely gives you that ability to, hit that 90 and 80 difference, or that 95, 85 difference. Would you say there's, is it Reed Roman? Would you say a guy like that, or a guy like Seth Beer, were those guys, obviously they hit really well coming into the program. Would you say any of those guys were pushy at all, or any guys that have that you've seen, like a Logan Davidson, did he go from a push to a turn, or was he already turning the barrel pretty well?
A good question. Actually, Logan and Reed were both guys. Now Logan's a little different story because he's a switch hitter. He's a little more pushy from one side than the other, and we've really worked hard on trying to get him to turn the barrel deeper. And we've used, with Logan in particular, his approach angle was fairly steep. He had a negative approach angle from one side of the plate. So we really worked on trying to get him to load into his scap more, so that the hips can lead the hands, which allows the barrel to turn deeper. Mm-hmm. Reed, it was a similar thing where when Reed would load, when we first got here, he would kind of bring his hands straight back towards the catcher and not pull, his back elbow into his body and tip the bat. Mm-hmm. Tip that bat and you create that stretch and you feel that tension in your back scap. Now the barrel can turn properly. So they were both a little bit pushy. We talked to them a little or about just really just getting into a good position to hit at foot strike so that your backside can bring your hands to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you do that and you show them on video, big league hitters that do it, and you show them what they do, then they can self-correct a little bit and start to feel, okay, that barrel snap it deeper and getting on plane earlier. And now you got a chance to be on plane and stay through the strike zone more. So, yeah, Seth really turns the barrel deep.
Mm-hmm.
And since he got here. So we didn't really make that many adjustments with his swing plane, so to speak, Seth. You know, the biggest thing that Seth has done in this year as opposed to the last 2 years is he's incorporated a leg kick as opposed to a toe tap.
Mm-hmm.
It helps him with his rhythm and timing a little bit more. But Seth was a guy that could get into weight transfer and stay loaded. You know, he could stay loaded into that scap and into that rear hip for a long period of time. As he falls forward, he would stay loaded so that he could turn the barrel deep. And that's why, you know, he's able to hit pitches to all parts of the field, hit them hard because his barrel gets on plane so early. Roman was a little pushy, worked on it, got better at it, and Logan well. So, you know, a lot of times it's just showing them some of the data, showing them video. If you use a diamond kinetic sensor or a blast motion sensor, you can start to see those things in their swing and show them their swing versus guys in the big leagues who hit for power and ride the baseball. Then they can start to self-correct a little bit and work on the things that you want them to work on.
Definitely, yeah. We use the sensor technology with our guys, especially for that instant feedback. I mean, it's amazing what a deeper understanding of what you're doing does for the ability to adjust. And, you know, especially with what sensor do you guys use?
We use a diamond kinetic sensor, but, you know, but we've heard really good things about blast motion as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, but we, as a program, use the diamond kinetic sensor.
Yeah, great. It provides a lot of metrics and a lot of things that you would never even think about. And like I said, it allows for that instant adjustment and, you know, immediate adjustment. Well, last question, man. Looking over your information, you do a lot of camps with youth players and stuff. Is what you teach at Clemson part of the routine that you guys teach in camp? Are you guys going over the intent to do damage? Are you guys talking about some of the same mechanics?
Well, here's my philosophy on camp. Whether we're working with a kid that's 7 years old or a kid that's 17 years old, that kid could wind up playing at Clemson or may wind up playing baseball at another school at a higher level one day. We need to teach them what we teach. That's just the way I look at it. Now, we may try to simplify it a little bit more if they're younger, but for the most part, we don't change what we teach based on age. And I think it's really important that kids understand at an early age. You know, when I go to watch a Little League game or something and I hear get on top of the ball or just try to put the ball in play, you know, things like that, I cringe. You know, just because, again, we're taken away from the aggressiveness and the intent to do damage with hitters at a young age. They need to understand that even at a young age, hey, man, get up there, get a good pitch to hit, take your best swing and try to drive the baseball. Because if you have that mentality to swing the bat with the intent to do damage into the big part of the field at a young age, that's gonna be really, really good for you as you continue to mature and progress, you know, through the different levels of baseball, so that when you do get that chance to play, you know, God willing, college baseball or maybe professional baseball one day, you're not having to overhaul your swing or overhaul your approach. You know, whereas if you've been taught to hit the top half of the ball, get on top of the baseball, just put the ball in play, you know, now when you get to college, well, look, if you try to hit the top half of the baseball or just put the ball in play here, you're an out. I mean, you've got to be able to hit the baseball with authority and drive the baseball if you want to hit at a high level. So I think, you know, for us, we absolutely teach the kids in our camps come exactly what we teach our hitters because of that.
That's awesome. I feel the same way. I definitely work with a lot of young kids all the way up, you know, through college and major league guys. And like you said, simplify, make it easy for them to understand, but don't lose sight of what's important. So, Monte, this was amazing, man. Excellent insight. I appreciate your time, man. I mean, I think I got every single question out that I wanted to ask, and man, let's keep in touch, and I'd be happy to keep talking hitting with you and answer any questions that you have about the things that we're doing over here. But man, best of luck to you this year, man. It's going to be another outstanding year.
Well, thank you so much, and I really appreciate it as well. I love following you on Twitter, watching the videos, watching what you're doing. A lot of the stuff you guys do, I'll steal and use it with our guys because I forget so just keep doing what you're doing, putting out great messages for hitters when it comes to development, and look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
All right, Monte. Thanks for your time, man.